Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman,
I'm Jelani Kelly.
I'm David Jones.
and today we're talking about everything, everywhere, all at once. So, I apologize to people who are not able to go see this right now because I know it's not like broadly released everywhere. I will get into my experience seeing it first, but I want us to go in the order we saw it. So, David, let's start with you because you got to go to an advanced screening,
Damn, what?
and I'm very jealous.
Yes, to go all the way back, the trailer comes out, and I'm one of those people who I watch every trailer when it comes out every Tuesday, and I just like to see what's coming. And that trailer hit so different, and I have a very close friend from Drexel who he graduated the same year as us, and he's an editor and he's a DP, but he really loves editing trailers. And I was like, watch this trailer, it's awesome. And he didn't think the trailer was that awesomely edited, but he did get intrigued by the concept. And then lo and behold, somehow he got us into an advanced screening, and we saw it like a month before it got released. And
Wow.
yeah, it was like very advanced, and it was this theater in Old City at the Ritz, and it was completely full, and I had no idea how long the movie was. I had to guess. I thought the movie was 90 minutes, but I had no idea. So I like fully was in. Like Evan has a note about it, and it's like not knowing the runtime in this movie is one of the best things about this movie. Like
Yeah.
you really do not know at what point what anything is happening, especially with like their fake ending and everything in the middle. Like it's just so I was so strapped in. I had no idea if the next scene was going to be the last scene. I was so confused about what was going to be presented to me next. I had hot dog fingers. I had epic fights with butt plugs shoved in them. I was just like, what is the next scene going to have? It was so much at once. The audience loved it. They cracked up. They cried. They were in awe. They gasped when it ended. They gasped when she died. Everything. It was just awesome. And I hadn't had a theater experience like that in so long. It was awesome. I really enjoyed the movie. I laughed probably like the whole time. Because I wasn't analyzing it. It was too much at once for me to even try to analyze. Like
Hmm.
I was fully just at the helm of that movie throughout the whole runtime. Like the Daniels had me.
Did you just see it the one time?
No, I saw it again after, and I analyzed it and everything then. But it was that first initial time. It was like a roller coaster. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna second the roller coaster comparison. I'm so glad I got to see this in a theater. I'd gotten some hype because I didn't get to see it early like you, but I was seeing reactions from people who did like online, just being like, "Yo, you gotta go see this. Go find where it's." And I kept looking for where it was showing, and I couldn't find anything within like a reasonable distance. But I did end up getting to it pretty early. For context, I think it was like first week of April. The first time seeing it in theaters, like I was pretty hyped. Like I saw the trailer once. I think when I went to see No Way Home, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that looks like it could be pretty good. I maybe put it on like a watch list or something. And then the more I heard about it, I was like, all right, I want to not rewatch the trailer or like look into anything, but I definitely want to see this because everyone's saying it's like that good. And then I saw it and I was like, okay, it's that good. The only movie that I have had that big of a reaction to on first viewing is probably Fight Club when I was 16. But the rewatch value definitely drops more on Fight Club for me than it did for this. Granted, I rewatched this a week later, so there wasn't exactly a whole lot of time. And it doesn't hit exactly the same, of course, on the second viewing. Like, it was better the first time, but it's still, like, really good. And I think it will be something that will be rewarding to revisit. Going back to the first time I watched it, like, I got back home and I couldn't do anything for like 2 hours. I was eating dinner and I was just kind of like in this weird headspace. And all of a sudden I go, there's so many circles in here. Because I was thinking like the bagel and the googly eyes, and I was noticing there's a lot of circles in my living room. And my roommate was like, are you high right now? And I ended up getting her to go see it a couple times, which is I texted like everyone, including both of you, after seeing it, like, you need to go see this. Anyone I've ever seen a movie with, I told, go see this. Yeah, I got to see it with 4 different people, two different sets of 2 people, and there were some good, walking home from the theater conversation about it. Did either of you catch the reference to the 9 Days song, Absolutely, Story of a Girl?
That another one of those bands, Evan?
It's a one-hit
I
wonder.
don't think I caught it. No.
Okay. I think I was the only person in my first theater to catch it. I was like, oh, that's fun. Do you guys know what I'm talking about at all?
No.
Your clothes
Nope.
never wear as well the next day, and your hair never falls in quite the same way?
No.
Okay, well, they say those lines in...
Well, all I'm thinking about is when he's talking to her about it, but I can't think of a song.
Okay. You may have heard it. It used to come up on my Pandora all the time. I think it's a one-hit wonder. But my second theater, there were some people who laughed at that. I don't know exactly how well-known that song is, but the 2 people I saw it with the first time, they didn't know what I was talking about when I mentioned it after either. I will leave it at that for now. But yeah, possibly the greatest theater experience. Or like, I got out of that and I was like, wow, that just happened. Like, I'm going to be able to tell like future people that I got to be there to see this in theaters, which is cool. All right, Jelani, go ahead.
So, I don't get the love for this movie. It's cool. I found myself audibly saying what through most of it. There were moments in the theater people found funny. I didn't. I think one scene made me laugh, but that was it. The absurdist stuff didn't work for me. It was just weird. And I'm normally one for absurdist stuff. I was kind of talking about this with Ev before we started. I'm on the internet a lot. There's a lot of dumb stuff that makes me laugh on the internet. A lot of it nonsensical because it's the internet. But here, I didn't find it funny. I went alone. Maybe that hurt the experience. Everybody in my theater, there was one guy laughed. He was having a grand old time. He was laughing at everything like A24, and an A24 employee was in the theater telling him when to laugh. Also, the hype for this movie was built up crazy amount from people telling me to see it. That didn't help, and that's partially Evan's fault and anyone else that recommended it to me. I saw it on Florence Pugh's Instagram story, and she was like, "This is my favorite movie ever." I was like, "Oh my god, if this movie is not even top 10 for me by the time I'm done, I'm gonna be mad at some people."
Well, I mean, I take responsibility. I wish you liked it more, but your reaction's your reaction.
Yeah, so again, and this is my first time ever going to a movie theater by myself. So again, maybe that hurt the experience. I mean, I was fine with watching it alone. Like, the experience, like, it was cool. There's nothing wrong with me going to see a movie by myself. But like, maybe if I had somebody try to convince me right after, like, hey, this was cool, you didn't find this cool, that cool, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's valid, though, because I know there have been a couple of things that I've had that with. I wouldn't have needed that for this, but I know Don't Look Up was a movie where I was like, I need to get a second opinion, and that's probably going to shape mine.
Yeah. Oh, did you not like it?
I ended up not.
Okay.
I won't send us off on a tangent into it, but that was like, I have had that where like, that actually even happened. I talked about this a little bit when we did our episode on the Batman. Like, the conversation I had walking home from the theater did kind of like reshape my view of it a little bit.
Yeah.
That same conversation wouldn't have had the same impact if it had been like a day later.
I like that movie, and I saw it with family during Christmas time when I think it came out.
Don't Look Up?
Yeah. I like that movie. Like, I told other people to see that. I wasn't hyping it. So it was like my favorite movie. I was just like, I like that. I like things that happened in this movie, and I like the way this movie was told. And I watched that with family. We were laughing through a good chunk of it. Jonah Hill is such an asshole in the movie. Anyway, it was mid to me. Like, I'm not knocking other people that enjoyed this movie except the ones that recommended it to me. But like, if you enjoyed the movie, hey, more power to you. If you can list all the reasons why you loved it, that's even better. But I'm not, and it sucks because this is a podcast, but like I'm not passionate really either way about it. And let's not recreate another Tick Tick Boom. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen here because you
That's
both
not going
love
to be
the
a problem
movie,
here.
So,
We definitely overcompensate for you with passion, but I do want to hear where you thought it maybe fell short or like what didn't land for you, because there are people who my boss, for one thing, I hyped this up to him and then he went and saw it and he was like, yeah, I don't quite get all of it. He could not get over the hot dog fingers. That was like such a deal breaker for him, apparently.
that was very stupid. Yeah. I did not, even once it happened, like, I did not find it funny. And then they kept going back to it in that universe. So I was like, this wasn't funny the first time. And it kept getting laughs from the theater. And I was like, what am I missing?
I don't think it's anything you're missing. Maybe it's a little bit like how you are with Scott Pilgrim, where it's like you're just not on the same wavelength with it.
I guess.
Because like I think that's another movie where it's like if you aren't really down with the weirdness of it, then none of it's really going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, then it just elevates everything, so it can get a little bit like polarized.
Mm-hmm.
And you've talked before about like that is kind of your Scott Pilgrim stance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm.
Did you have more?
Not for the initial things, but we can get into what I really didn't like about it later. It's really just one thing, which was the characters, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, do we want to start with that? I'm not like super set on the order here, so.
Okay. I didn't care for any of them. None of the villains, I guess you could call them that. I didn't care for any of the characters. I'm not, and I had a conversation with my writer friends. Well, you both are writer friends as well, but some other friends that also happen to be writers of mine. One of them asked a question, what's more important, plot or character? One of them cheated and said the emotion that's pulled out of the audience. So I was like, all right, you're cheating. You have two options here. One of us said plot, which was me, and the other said character, which was another friend. And I thought this made me think maybe I was wrong in that conversation. Maybe the plot would have worked better for me if the characters were different or if I had any sort of feeling towards the characters. But then I thought, like, there are other examples out there where I don't give a damn about any of the characters in the movie. I just want to see cool shit happen. There's plenty of, I don't know, action movies that follow that, like Transformers, for example. I like the robot things in Transformers and things blowing up. And it's a big, dumb action movie. I like the movie. Nobody has ever seen a Transformer movie and was like, you know what this movie needs? More humans. I don't care. Yeah, I don't know here. And I'm not one to... I like to think I'm not one that needs to relate to the characters in any way in order to like them. I don't relate to Homelander. I'd like to think, so, but I like him as a character. Same with Omni-Man. I'm listing Superman knockoffs. It's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I like to think I'm not one that needs to relate to the characters. I didn't relate to any of these characters, but I also didn't care what they were going through. The message was kind of cool, I guess. She was just like, we don't know, there's no point to any of this. You just kind of do it, or whatever she said at the end when she hugged her daughter. And I was like, okay, that's nice.
Do you think maybe it would make a difference if Evelyn was a little bit more generic? Or would it have helped if she was more specific? Because I was kind of thinking about, like, and David, I kind of want to tie in the topic that you brought in for this, into this conversation as well. But I'll hear your answer to this too, Jelani. Like, do you think that making her more generic or more specific would have helped that problem for you? Or any of the characters, but especially Evelyn?
I don't know. I tend to not like when a character is generic, so maybe more specific. I think she was specific enough. It's just I couldn't find myself caring. Like, how many characters can you name that? First of all, she was the main character, and I read somewhere, it might have been David's Instagram story, or it was somebody's something, and it was talking about how there needs to be more movies made about middle-aged women as the main characters. And so I was like, yeah, that's pretty dope. how many characters can you name? It's a middle-aged woman that's a mom running a failing laundromat and goes on a multiversal adventure. Go ahead. Go. The failing marriage, kind of homophobic grandfather up to a point. There were a lot of specific things about this character, and I don't think generalizing her would fix any of that. I'm trying to find out, as I speak, I'm trying to find out why I didn't care just for any of them.
David, did you want to build on that? Because that kind of was feeding into your topic.
I mean, it's just a true statement. There's not a lot of middle-aged women in cinema or television, and if they are represented, they're seldom the main character. I really couldn't name one that is the main character until this movie. I think that's something that really needs to change. And I mean, I've heard it harped on by so many actors, and specifically women. Even like when I look at like YouTube videos of like archived interviews of like the 60s and 70s, and it's like the Hollywood starlets who kind of got older and they're like, yeah, they don't want us anymore. And I'm like, damn. And it's like, that's just how the industry kind of is. So I would love to see that changed, but we'll see if it happens. I personally, all the specific things that Jelani just said were the things that I really enjoyed about it. I think through the specific, you get the universal. I think if you were too generic, it's forgettable. But I don't know, maybe it wasn't specific enough. Maybe it was, I don't know. I don't know if it was just, I want to say messy, because I don't consider it messy because there's so much going on and I feel like I was still able to follow it. So I feel like for me to say it's messy when I feel like there's so many movies going on at once, I would be like not telling the truth. But I could also see why someone might get lost in the sauce. Like my sister, I told her to go see it and she told her work friends about it, and one of her work friends didn't like it. The other two liked it, but the other one was like, yeah, you're never picking movies again. So I can understand how, like, I think early on, like you said, like if you don't get on the ride, this movie will not land. Like you have to be completely on with the movie's logic, because the movie has a very specific logic, and if you're not okay with it, then the rest of the movie is not going to hit.
I think that's especially true with character. Like, I hadn't really thought of that, but now that you're both spelling it out, I think, yeah, there is a little bit that, like, there's so much, like, Jelani, what you were saying earlier, like, is plot more important than character? When you started saying that, I was thinking this movie chooses character over plot. I'm actually not sure if that's true, because you do kind of lose some of the character story for a while. Like, I think it's definitely anchored in that. I don't want to say it disservices its characters, because it definitely doesn't. But it would be relatively easy for many audience members to lose all of that because there's too much happening. It's too chaotic. And that can happen in much simpler movies, too, where I think, like, spy movies tend to have this problem. And granted, those are much less character focused, but it's like there's so many intricacies happening there and so much plot development, so many twists happening that you're just trying to keep up and you lose track of where each character is at. I don't think this falls into that trap too much, but the chaos of it, I think, could. I'm sure you're not the only one who's feeling that way, Jelani, of like, you can't connect to the characters because you're a little bit lost as to where they are. I think the movie is still doing a really good job from a character perspective, but I don't think that's a result of like you not paying attention or anything like that. It's just like, this is just something you have to get on the right wavelength with. And there are certainly movies where I am not on the right wavelength for it. This just is not one of them. In terms of the specificity thing, I was thinking about comparing them to some other protagonists that kind of are, I guess, more everyman protagonists, especially in sci-fi. The three that I was thinking of the most were Joe Gardner from Soul, Riley from Inside Out, and the protagonist from Tenet. I don't want to get too much into like any of those three movies, but Riley in Inside Out is basically a blank slate. She is basically there for the audience to imprint on and just kind of like use the like world building of like the emotions and the way that they show like how the mind works in that movie. I think you're kind of meant to just imprint your own experiences onto that. almost like Riley's like a video game character that you're controlling. Kind of, I don't know. I feel I'm not. I maybe shouldn't make that comparison because I'm not super well versed in games, but I know that sometimes that's the approach.
Definitely
where
not
it's like,
MLB.
Okay, well, I like to think sometimes not MLB. We can get into how bad I am at MLB at another time. But yes.
Good.
Although to be fair, if I were in the MLB, I would probably take L's even harder than I do in the game. So anyway, I think there is like a little bit more of that like blank slate approach with Riley, but with Joe Gardner in Soul, I kind of was feeling like there's a little bit of that, but he's still a pretty specific character with like a more full life experience. And that's kind of more so the case with Evelyn here, where like you can kind of like imagine yourself in the multiverse experience that she's going through, but they also spend a lot of time setting up like what her specific situation on this day and then kind of expand it out into her whole life is. Like the history of her like leaving home, starting the laundromat, like that all matters in a way where it does make her harder to like fit that blank slate protagonist thing. So that was kind of what I was going for when I was asking about like more generic, more specific. And then my third example, the protagonist from Tenet, I feel like is a little bit of a middle ground there where like he's an adult and like, which is, I'm just saying that as a comparison to Riley as like a 12-year-old protagonist. And I think a lot of credit for him being specific is John David Washington's performance there, more so than anything that like Nolan put in the script. But there's some indications as to like, this guy is experienced. This guy has like, he doesn't feel like he's supposed to be some like audience insert character. But at the same time, he's literally just named the protagonist. So there's only so specific we're meant to read him.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have anything to build on with that?
Again, not that I don't feel at liberty, but like I understand everything at a distance. I understand the love and when you're bringing up these points about loving the plot, characters, all that, I'm like, cool. I respect that. I didn't go through any of that or didn't think any of that while watching it, so I'm not going to debate you on that.
Yeah, and like I said, there's other movies I could say that with. David, did you have more you wanted to go into with your topic there?
No, it's just like I wish there was more because I'd eat that up. I'd love to see more middle-aged women just killing it. I loved Mayor of Easttown.
Oh yeah, I guess that is an example. I wasn't able to think of any others.
But it doesn't happen, so it'd be cool. But Hollywood and the world in general, at large, has a long way to go.
Regina King, she played Watchmen.
That was one of my favorite. The fact that didn't get a second season.
She was the Watchwoman.
She was. That burns me. That's a phenomenal season of TV.
I just know that's an example. I didn't watch the show, nor do I know the character's name, but Regina King's goated. So,
all right, we'll go into the genre of imaginative sci-fi and multiverses. I feel like at this point, multiverse is becoming a subgenre with how much of it there is. It's not completely new, but I feel like now it's like catching mainstream appeal. The two most recent Marvel movies are using it, plus Spider-Verse, plus Rick and Morty, so it's kind of mainstream now. I think this is the best multiverse movie, and no shade to Spider-Verse, because it's definitely a close second. But I think in terms of like how this handles a multiverse story, this is better. I'm not going to make claims that this is better than Into the Spider-Verse, even though I think I rank it slightly higher. But I think in terms of like how it handles the multiverse as a story concept, this does a better job.
The thing I'll say is I agree in the sense that it's better in the way of using the multiverse as a theme.
Yes.
I think that it was better. I can
agree with that. Because with Spider-Verse, you kind of have to know Spider-Man a bit to like vibe with that whole thing in that movie. But here, I feel like it's definitely more not generalized. Well, I guess it's way more open to all audiences here when it comes to the concept of multiverses. With Spider-Verse, it's just different Spider-Men, but in this, it's like hot dog fingers.
Yeah, and they use it to really drive home their points where
Mhm.
like they have the whole line where it's like in another life I would have loved to just like owned a laundromat and do taxes with you or whatever.
Mhm.
Like different things for the characters are really underlined through this different multiverse. Where Spider-Verse, it doesn't feel like Miles is really driving his point home with his dad because like he had seen other versions of himself with his
Right.
dad.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like it's kind of using the multiverse as like an excuse for its premise. Again, not a problem that it does that, but it's kind of like using it as a vehicle to do a crossover thing. And especially like, I mean, that is taken to a 15 in No Way Home and even in the new Doctor Strange.
Out of 10, you mean?
Yeah, 15 out of 10. In
like,
term
what?
in terms of like just using like the multiverse theory is really just there in No Way Home so that we can get Garfield, Holland and Maguire all together. Again,
Fan service.
I don't have a
at
problem with
work.
that.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody did. And if you did, give me an address.
Or maybe don't. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad way to approach a multiverse, but I think it's much easier for one thing, and I really hope that that's not where we're going with multiverse stuff, but it probably is because of how much money those two movies are making, and even how much this one is making. Like it's not, I don't think it's cleared 100 million yet, but I think it is the highest grossing A24 movie already.
Wow.
Yes, in the US and Canada.
Yeah, because I don't think it's released fully worldwide right now. I don't know exactly where it's available, but I know there's some countries that don't have it yet.
It has surpassed Uncut Gems.
Thank God. I haven't seen Uncut Gems, but if Adam Sandler's the number one of something, I kind of have a problem with it, even if I hear good things about Uncut Gems.
Is Sorry to Bother You A24?
No, I think that's something like it's one of those things that I get confused with A24 sometimes, though. I think I can't. Maybe it's Annapurna. It's one of those ones that I get all of those confused. But comparing to another major multiverse thing, like I think the thing that does the most takes the most similar approach to this is certain elements of Rick and Morty. But I think even those fall short. Like there's some interesting stuff with some of the multiverse things and like other versions of characters that show does, but there's so much more thematically that this goes into. And again, I don't want to like throw too much shade at Rick and Morty with this because it does like some really inventive stuff in some cases.
Yeah, that show's wacky.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's also kind of just using the multiverse as an excuse to kind of jump the shark in some cases, where like it's just kind of going like, all right, Rick just doesn't die right here because there's 3 billion other versions of him and he's just gonna like remake himself in some other universe or whatever. It's just kind of using it as a shortcut to be able to do something extreme. Again, not the only case, because like I think basically my expectation going into this movie, I didn't really think of this consciously, but afterward I kind of realized like I was sort of expecting it to be like the interdimensional cable episode of Rick and Morty, like the first one where I guess spoilers for this episode, but like one of the like through lines in that is the two parents are like getting to see what other versions of themselves would do in like, or what they did and like what their lives were like in other places. And I was kind of expecting this movie to take more of that kind of approach, and it does a little bit, but that kind of falls off. And I'm fine with that. I think it was much better at approaching its other themes. But I was expecting it to kind of focus more around like regret of, oh, what if I didn't do this thing? Like if I made a different decision here, what would my life be? Because that to me was the more obvious route. And that's why I'm glad I didn't write this movie, because this is a much smarter and more resonant approach. But yeah, I think that this is going to be the gold standard for multiversal storytelling. I'm glad this is coming out early before the trend gets too tired, And I hope that future generations can appreciate this as still really good. Because I think there's sometimes when, like, something sets off such a big trend. Like, we were kind of talking about it last episode with Jurassic Park, where I think part of why I didn't appreciate that at first is because I saw all the bad imitations of it before seeing it. So I hope that doesn't become the case here.
What were the bad imitations? The monster movies we talked about? Like Sharknado and all that?
Yeah, or like even just like smaller things that big action movies do that are kind of like trying to do the thing, like with the precocious children trope, like the worst versions of that. We don't need to rehash it, but anyway, I hope that we don't see imitations. This is what my hope for it is, that like it gets the Get Out imitation treatment where we start making really cool imaginative sci-fi instead of 15 more multiverse movies.
Get Out really did change the horror game like that. That's crazy.
Well, but I mean, jumping the gun a little bit here, but I see Sorry to Bother You as one of like the Get Out followers, I guess. I don't know exactly what the word for it is, but like something that was made because Get Out was successful, and it's completely original. Like there's nothing that Sorry to Bother You like steals from Get Out, but it kind of fits the same genre.
Is it horror?
No, but I don't want to spoil it too much for you or the audience.
Don't say nothing.
But like there's reasons that I feel like, I'll explain it when we get there, but I feel like Get Out's imitators, or not imitators, but like the things that it inspired are very fresh and original, and I really hope that's the case here. Lakeith Stanfield. Yeah, well, okay, I guess that's one thing that they do share is Lakeith Stanfield.
Lakeith.
In terms of other things with the genre, like, this just, like, I won't make too much of a thing about this, but, like, I love imaginative sci-fi. It's probably my favorite genre, and specifically, this movie has, like, it just kind of checks some boxes for me. Like, cross-cut climax sequences are everything for me. Inception has it, Inside Out has it, V for Vendetta, I think, has it, and this has an amazing cross-cut climax. That definitely gave it some ticks up.
I mean, comparing the movies you just said to it, I would imagine Inception.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I love how hard it commits to the premise too, like, because I think there's a frustrating amount of sci-fi movies that are like, we have this one concept we're going to go really hard with, and it does for like the first hour, and then the next hour is just kind of, it turns into a generic action movie, or like turns into, again, not to get us off on too many other examples, but despite some of its like more generic elements, I think In Time is a sci-fi movie that does a really good job with that, where like it really utilizes its premise for the entire runtime. And that counts for a lot in my book, even if that's a little bit of a mid movie.
Yeah.
We should talk about that at some point, though, because that's an interesting movie.
Time is money and life.
And Justin Timberlake.
And was it Olivia Wilde?
Yeah, and Amanda Seyfried.
And and then he catches her like he didn't catch his mom.
Mm-hmm. Spoilers, but yes.
Just in time. Did you know that Justin Timberlake has In Time if you put his last and first name together?
Did they use that in any of the marketing? I'm just now realizing that.
Nope, they didn't. But somebody on Reddit was like, hey, this is a thing.
Missed opportunity.
Yep, just like he missed catching his mom.
That's like they should have had a James Bond movie come out in 2007 so they could put it out on 707 007.
All right, Evan. Hey, Evan, I know a better studio than A24. A25. Wait, you understand that reference?
I do understand that reference. That's a SpongeBob reference. That's one
the
of the
hell,
only
man?
ones that I
Wow.
What?
The
Hey,
gates
Patrick.
of heaven have opened.
I
The
thought it
angels
was
are
something
singing.
funnier than 24. 25. I only know that through Vines.
Okay. Well, at least you got. I
do
thought
know
David
that.
was gonna get it.
Yeah.
I was like, this joke is for David, but I'm gonna say it to Evan.
I do.
David
understood
didn't
that
laugh though,
reference.
so I'm glad Evan did.
Let's see if we run through the 2 other SpongeBob references that I know at some
Oh
point.
yeah, I gotta figure them out. I'm gonna just start quoting shit.
Where's the SpongeBob multiverse movie? You know it's
Oh
coming.
man,
Oh.
that probably is in the works right now.
One where it's like
They jump into his different holes, and it's the different
Oh.
world.
that's the beginning. That's the inciting incident.
So then at some point, this is going to sound so dirty, all 5 of Patrick's star points are going to be in 5 of SpongeBob's different holes so that they can defeat the whatever.
How is there any way that's not dirty? Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
Oh, that's one that I know.
One more to find.
Yeah. I don't know how well known that one is. I'll just say it right now. The only other one I know is when Patrick asks, "Is mayonnaise an instrument?" No, Patrick.
Oh.
Mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish
Man.
is not an instrument either.
You gotta.
Classic.
There's so many other good ones. Like, tell them, David. Go ahead.
I don't know. I feel like we should get back to everything if we were all at once.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've been
that's what
doing
we're
okay
talking
on
about.
not having too many tangents.
We were.
We were. And even then, we were kind of still talking about multiverses there.
Holes, butt plugs. Go.
Butt plugs, yes. So, how did you guys feel about the stage?
If I'm the one getting whiplash, like that's saying something.
All right. How did you guys feel about the stakes with this? Because I feel like this did such a good job with high stakes, partly because the power scaling of Jobu Tupaki as a villain was insanely good. I was intimidated by her, like, instantly. And maybe that's just me being on the right wavelength. But, like, when she fights the cops in the tax building and, like, makes one of their heads, like, burst into confetti and then, like, pulls her hair back and her face is on both sides of her head, I was like, oh shit, this is like, it just got real. Maybe that was just me, but I feel like that's part of why the stakes
No,
feel so
I was
high.
in it too.
Okay.
No,
I bought all the steaks. All of them.
I didn't. I guess I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
They didn't cook it quite right for you.
Yeah, no. This steak was rare.
Everything about it. It was very fabulously gay. Like her outfit's always changing, the hair, the nails, the shoes. It was like every different outfit I can see. And I even saw it with my friend who was like, that's every college girl's Halloween costume is one of those outfits. And I was like, you're so right. Like she is styling. They design her out all the time. And it's just like from the jump she comes in, you just get a feeling that she can control this crazy thing. And that's terrifying. And it was fantastic.
And the stuff she's saying to the cops when she's like, I don't think you understand what the word can't means. I was like, oh shit, this is so good.
Yeah, she's never not in control.
And it's like exposing the theme and like it's power scaling for like not just her, but also like this is kind of connecting 2 things here. But like if you don't buy into the idea that like all the multiverse craziness is like actually happening, if you don't buy into that, it's still such good power scaling because you're like, oh, this is Joy's headspace. Like, Evelyn has to overcome something this strong. How the hell is she going to do that? That is where I think the stakes succeed so well here. It's a major thing that I love about this and how hard it goes into like the imaginative sci-fi thing is that everything that is happening in the different multiverses, whether you believe in it or not as like, or if you're invested in those exact stakes, it's still pointing to like some part of Evelyn's psychology or Joy's psychology or some relationship between like the main characters. So it all matters and there's stakes to all of it. So even if, and I think we've talked about this on other episodes, I think that like scaling down your stakes actually kind of scales them up in a way, because most movies where the world is being threatened, we are pretty sure that the world's not going to end. I can only name about 2 where the world actually ends, and even when it did, I was kind of like, okay, I don't really care. You didn't invest me enough.
Spoiler alert, Don't Look Up is one of those.
Okay, Don't Look Up, actually, that sort of worked, but I guess I
Oh.
wasn't thinking of that as an example.
Okay.
So that's a good counterexample. But yes, spoilers. I was thinking Watchmen, the Zack Snyder one.
Boy, did the world end in that?
Kind of. Well, at the very least, like the bad guy won and the nuke went off, so close enough. But anyway, I think the stakes are elevated because it's actually just this like human drama, and there's nothing world-ending about Joy giving into nihilism and depression. That is a very grounded, very realistic thing. So it feels very possible that the movie could end with that happening.
I was just thinking, do it. Eat the bagel.
Yeah, or go into, like, when she's getting
won't.
sucked in by the bagel.
You won't. I dare you.
I do like an everything bagel.
I don't think that's the point here. You know what? I was just thinking, do it. Steak doesn't even go on a bagel.
Steaks and bagels.
Well,
Yeah.
Lox
and bagels, steaks and bagels.
It's actually not bad. Anyway, I didn't care if this world ended or not, or if the multiverse ended. It's just like,
Was there anything that maybe could have helped with the stakes for you?
caring if the characters died.
Okay. Can't argue with that.
I cared about the characters, so it all worked for me. Like, it was such a beautiful expose on generational trauma, and I was like, I wanted Evelyn to have her moment with her father. I wanted Joy to have her moment with Evelyn. I wanted Evelyn to have her moment with her husband. I wanted Evelyn and Jamie Lee Curtis in that hot dog reality to have their moment. I wanted the Rocks to have their moment. I was with everyone because they showed a universal story in some of the most absurd ways possible.
Maybe the movie worked on me in the wrong way. Maybe when it comes to this movie, I'm taking Jobu's point of view. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a wrong way to do it. Like I said, I think it's it's like whether you're on the wavelength thing.
What frequency?
Wouldn't know, but whatever it is, I'm on it. You gotta switch the channel on your walkie-talkie, I guess.
69 420.
69 420. It's definitely that. I feel like this movie would possibly be on that frequency though. Like
Probably.
for
Well, it
all
had
the
a butt
other
plug
humor
fight,
in it.
Evan. It had a butt plug fight.
It had a butt plug fight. It had the villain's entrance involve knocking the shit out of a dude with a pair of dildos. So
She did do that. And he was like bloodied after that.
And all the gagging with the hot dog fingers.
yeah, the hot dog fingers.
I love this movie so much.
So let's go into the themes now. And David, you mentioned it. The first theme I had was generational trauma. Do either of you want to start with that?
I'll start. I mean, this is the first thing that like shot out to me, and the second time watching it, I really saw it through, and I saw just how well written the movie was to handle so many. Because I was starting to look at the press and everything, and Michelle Yeoh was like, "Yeah, this movie really has 5 genres in one," and I was like, usually when people say that, it's not a good thing. And I was like, all right, how did the Daniels do this? Because it's doing so much. But it never feels like a burden. It never feels too heavy to follow. It's always fun, but it's always emotional. Like I'll be crying, laughing, and then just crying. Like everything with her and her husband, and then her and Joy at the end. Like it was so beautiful. Everything worked in this movie for me, and I think the theme of generational trauma especially worked.
Of the themes that I was able to identify, it's probably the one that I like personally vibe with the least. But I'm not knocking that theme at all. I think it's just a personal thing. That arc works really well. Where, like, at the beginning, she is resistant to, like, she's kind of making excuses for her dad to Joy of, like, he's not down with you being gay, so I'm not going to tell him. And then by the end, she does come around to that. And I thought it was like a nice, natural, like it's not a full 180 because at the beginning, like Evelyn is at least somewhat accepting of Joy and her girlfriend, but she isn't fully supportive. So it's like maybe a 60-degree turn for the amount of time that this movie takes place over. If you're looking at like the prime timeline, it's one day. I think a bigger turn than that would have been unrealistic or like hard to buy. It's still like, I think it worked pretty well in that way. And you kind of had the parallel where she's kind of understanding, like, if I am not supportive of Joy here, that's going to have a similar impact to her that, like, her dad not approving of Waymond way back when, like, it's gonna repeat that cycle. So that was all really good. I don't know if it hit for me exactly while I was watching it, but I see it all there in, like, retrospect. I had one other point with this, but did either of you want to chime in on that at all?
Nah.
Nothing. I wanted to see like the other point of view because me and Evan are like agreeing.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you're saying. Like, you're making good points.
Well, that's not entertaining.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, David. I know. I don't know what to say to any of this.
Make fake conflict then.
Actually, that's generations. Do they exist? I don't think they do.
Trauma, is it real?
Trauma,
get over it, snowflake.
Yeah, it's all made up. It's a movie. It shouldn't even really be affecting you like that. Game over, nerds. Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you say. Like, I don't. Yeah, good.
Well, my last point is not actually my own, so it's bringing in an outside source as well. My friend Miguel, who I saw it with the second time, who's also a screenwriter, he made a really good point when we were walking back that, like, Evelyn completing her arc didn't solve everything, and he really appreciated that. And after he said that, I was like, I definitely agree with that, because I think it's unrealistic, especially for, like, how deep this movie goes into its themes. Like, if Evelyn, like, telling her dad that what's Joy's girlfriend's name? Is it Becky?
No clue.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. But whatever that character's name is, when she, like, introduces them and says this is Joy's girlfriend, and it kind of, like, starts to hit like it's this, like, big resolution, and then Joy's still kind of upset with her. I think that it's a more nuanced and, like, I want to use a different word than realistic, but something like that. It's a more, I guess, like, honest approach to it. And even later, Joy is falling back into the bagel, and Evelyn is pulling her out. Like, there's only so much power that Evelyn has there. It still has to be Joy's decision not submit to the depression and nihilism of the bagel. And I really appreciate that.
Did you hear the sentence you just said?
Yes. Which, out of context, of course, sounds ridiculous. But
continue. That's it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just would like to see that approach taken more often in storytelling, because I think I'm not trying to, like, downplay, like, the importance of, like, your parental figures or lack thereof on, like, a person's development. That all is valid, but I think sometimes in storytelling it is taken to a little too much of an extreme, where it's like, if only I solve, like, this conflict with my parents, then everything in my life is, like, or, like, sometimes I think too much is attributed to that, and, like, there's not enough like, credence given to the fact that, like, I don't know, people are individuals. I feel like it gets a little oversimplified, and after Miguel pointed that out, I kind of appreciated that more with this. And it's a tall order, because character creation on, like, a deep level is hard, but I'd like to see more of it in more areas than that. But I think that's a place where this movie succeeds.
So you don't think the Goofy movie is good?
What?
Are you talking about the original Goofy movie or an extreme?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Because I feel like Max in the Goofy movie is all designed in the image of Goofy. It doesn't have his own real arc like that, you know. But the Goofy movie really was real for some people.
I'll take your word for it. I have not actually seen it, so.
I'm kidding. This was all a bit.
I know some people really like the Goofy movie, so, like, I'm not trying to take anything
I was
from
hoping
anyone.
someone had seen the Goofy movie so they'd get it, but it's not that deep.
I was trying to see your point. That's why I was quiet. I was like,
because it's the Goofy movie is the opposite. It's the romanticized where it's like all the issues are the dad, and then once they figure it out, it's like yay son, yay papa. But this movie, they're both three-dimensional human beings, so it's like no.
but the
Just because you
songs.
figured out your stuff, the song slap.
I
Just because you
try.
figured out your stuff, Evelyn, doesn't mean Joy or Jojo Japaki, or whatever her name is,
Jobu
Nope.
Chapaki.
is messed up.
But
Because when you put everything on a bagel, do you know what actually happens? When you put everything
On a bagel.
on a bagel?
I love the everything bagel metaphor. It's so good.
I thought it was gonna turn out to be like a giant butthole or something. Knowing this movie,
It would have been par for the course. Are we done with that topic? Because the next thing is the everything bagel, with the theme of optimism versus nihilism. I've seen some debate of what exactly the bagel represents. I've heard people say it's representative depression, suicide, nihilism, the internet. I think it could be all of those at the same time, or at
Well,
least
it's
like a
everything.
combination of. Yes, it's everything. It's an everything bagel. So I suppose it would be kind of contradictory if it didn't represent something. Recently, after seeing it, I saw a comparison of like the bagel and the googly eye are like they're opposites of each other, where the bagel is pessimism, where like most of the world is bad and anything good is like an anomaly, and the googly eye is looking at the world as mostly good, but there is still bad in it, because they're inverse, where it's like a black circle with a white center or a white circle with a black center.
is that a race thing?
I really
Nobody's
hope
saying
not.
it.
It did sound way more racist when I said it, so I really hope not.
So the mostly black thing with the white center is evil? Wow. That's saying something. I see you,
Because
Daniels.
white people at their core are evil. Because white's in the core.
I was picturing.
But that'd be weird.
Bagels are.
Because then I would be black and you would be white.
Wait, are you guys black?
Last I checked, no.
All these years, I thought the oppression was because I was gay.
I've got that revitiligo.
Oh, you got it bad then, huh?
I guess so.
That's crazy. Where are we going with this?
The bagel.
The racism?
Maybe, but it started with the bagel.
That means racism's on the bagel too then.
Racism probably is on the bagel.
I wonder what that looks like as one of the
If
seeds.
it's on the ballot, it's on the bagel.
I don't get that reference.
Racism's on the ballot, you know? People say that.
I have no idea what that means.
It's
with elections.
Yeah, with
Oh.
elections, voting for candidates.
It's a vote for racism is a vote for bagels.
Well, I don't want to give up bagels, so I really hope not. I like bagels.
Right? Every breakfast sandwich just dies.
Guys, we gotta cancel breakfast.
Anyway, what do we think about the symbolism of the bagel? I thought it was a good metaphor and scary power scaling.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie is so absurd and strange. I guess I didn't think too deeply into the metaphor because I just was like, this movie is so unapologetic about how weird it gets that, like, why not? It's called an everything bagel. So what if someone took that so literally and put literally everything on a bagel? What does that look like? And I bought it. I didn't think about it too much because I was having so much fun. And if you really did want to analyze it, like if I wanted to think about what it means to be a bagel and be empty at its core and what this movie's trying to fulfill with each character and their family and everything, it actually does apply. So I don't know if the Daniels really thought about it that deep or if one of them just went to Starbucks one morning and was like, everything bagel.
What if it really was an everything bagel?
Yeah, like, somewhere in between that, the magic happened and I'm very okay with it.
Jelani, anything there?
Everything.
Everything.
That's a great answer.
They don't offer this kind of. Well, they offer everything bagels, but they're like, I think they're cheating me out of what I could really get. You know?
Yeah.
Why doesn't my bagel have black holes in it?
Yeah, everything bagels only
of it.
have like 4 toppings.
It's like salt, poppy, sesame, and
Garlic.
is it garlic? I think onion's one of them.
Yeah, well, it probably depends on the place, but I feel like those are the four that I usually see. How do we feel about the reading of this as like, or reading the bagel as the internet, or reading like, because I didn't really notice this the first time, but then I saw somebody make a comparison of like the bagel could symbolize the internet, and I started looking at it that way. And I think there is something there with like the multiverse being this is brought up I think specifically in the scene with the rocks of like the more we discover about the world, the smaller we feel, and like the worse that we feel about ourselves. And I feel like that is kind of trying to be some kind of symbolism of having like constant internet access and having the world be as interconnected as it is. And like I don't know if we as a species are fully ready to be as connected as we are. And I feel like this movie kind of taps into that with multiverse theory.
Nah, I think that's a whole stretch.
Why?
I don't think it's that deep. I think what the movie said was good, but like the bagel being the internet, I'm not seeing what you're saying.
So what do you see as like its message or like where it lands on this theme? Because I think there's a few readings of it you could take.
The suicide depression thing, I mean, she was literally trying to kill herself, it seemed like. Remember that one guy went through it, and we don't know where he is, if he's anything anymore.
So you think that the bagel is definitely a suicide allegory?
Probably. I mean, that's what makes the most sense out of the four you mentioned.
I think it makes as much sense as some of the other ones.
Because you can't come back from it.
True.
It doesn't seem. You know, you can leave the internet.
No
People that live off the grid, it's not easy to do, but you can come back from being on the internet. Only thing you can't come back from what you listed is this suicide thing. So
yeah,
I mean, we don't know if it's possible to come back from becoming one with the everything bagel, but again, with that one guy used as the example, it didn't look possible. I'm sure he would have come back if he could, unless it's just the afterlife on the other side.
Yeah, or if that's like just a place where the metaphor is not quite so tight. Because I think that was just in the middle of an action scene. So that might have just been like a thing to be like, oh, the bagel is death. Just kind of like setting that stakes up. David, how about you? Do you think there's holes to be poked in the internet reading or any of the readings?
I mean, I'm not gonna say any one reading really was more legitimate than the other, because when it comes to like interpretation of art, like that's everyone's interpretation is valid. And like if someone watched this and saw that Joy spent too much time on her phone and that's why she's running away from the family because the internet got her down bad, that's fine. If someone watched it and thought that she was depressed and that's why she's running away, that's fine. To me, the bagel literally was everything. It was just whatever, that straw that broke the camel's back, whatever is pushing the family apart. And Evelyn has to make the choice that her father didn't make all those years ago, which is to say no and to work through the storm. Because that's what I saw it as. I saw the bagel as like a long day's journey into night, like whatever night is. Like that's what the bagel was. The bagel was whatever each viewer needed it to be, to represent like a hardship in a family and a hurdle that a family unit has to either get over or it's going to break. And every family has that.
Yeah, I think that's another reason that this is like so resonant, is that it is grounded in something that a good amount of viewers can relate to on some level. Everyone who has any kind of relationship with their parents or their kids has had, like, there's conflict in those somewhere. Obviously some more than others, but there's a good majority of people who can relate to that on some level. So I think that definitely helps with it.
I guess with you saying that, I guess I did relate to the characters in some way then. Still didn't care about them, but they got that.
Well, again, like, I don't think you went into this the wrong way or came out of it the wrong way because, like, you don't vibe with them. That's just a taste thing. But I would hope, and I wouldn't be surprised if on a second viewing, maybe it does hit a little more for you.
I'd like to watch it with somebody on my second viewing to see what they say.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be buying the Blu-rays, so I'd be down to, and I know I'm going to be rewatching this. So
All right, relax. I didn't
Well-
say anybody.
okay. So there's a good list and a bad list, and somebody just got moved to number 1 on the bad list, I guess. What I like best about this theme is how much it engages with. I see like the theme that is, at least in dialogue, being engaged with the most is nihilism. And I like how much it engages with that because it allows for a greater catharsis. And I think that just like is a good lesson to take into any kind of approach to a theme, is, or even like if you're gonna like debate somebody on something, you got to acknowledge the valid sides of their argument so that you can, if you're going to like be able to contradict or like come out with a solid answer, you got to fully engage with the opposite view. And I think that's just a really good approach to theme.
Yeah, in theory, I know some people where they don't see the other side, and they think they've come out on top, and I'm just like, you haven't seen any other perspective but your own, and you think you're winning this argument. Okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Like arguments are messy and people are strong-willed. I'm counting myself among them in that. It definitely gets much messier. But I think at least in approaching theme in a story, you're kind of constructing both sides of that argument yourself. So in that sense, I think like when you're just having an argument, then that's, you know, two people with their worldviews clashing there, and it usually is kind of messy. But I had a minute when I was teaching English this past year where I had students debate each other on some topics. And some of the best ones, like the best thought out arguments, one of them just keeping it grounded in something that we are very familiar with here. One of them was Marvel versus DC. And the kid arguing for DC was like, I'm going to just give you the fact that Marvel has better movies.
That's it. That's literally it.
Well, but he was able to then use that to like point to other things and build out he built out a stronger argument than I was expecting. But I thought that was like a strength, and I think that's a way that is good to approach theme, is if you're going to come out of your movie with like a strong, solid like take on your theme, it's going to be stronger if you engage with the other side more. And on more of like a viewing experience level, if you bring something to like a really dark place, but you end up having an essentially happy ending, it's going to hit a lot harder because you brought us to more extreme places. I don't know if this is the most fair comparison, but I know a movie that I really checked out of emotionally was The Patriot, partly because I am not on the same wavelength as Roland Emmerich. But in that movie, like Mel Gibson's character, it like just, he ends up losing like so many people. But after a little while, I was just like, okay, I kind of stopped caring a while back. But if there had been more of like an up and down with it, where like where the movie showed there could be good things that happen to this character and bad, then it kind of hits harder.
I just thought of how messed up it would be if like these movies were just like real people's lives being recorded, but we just thought of them as movies, and how messed up it would be if, like I said earlier, I didn't really care if any of the characters died. Like seeing them as like real people, but still saying that I just think that's funny. Like you were like, I didn't care after a certain point that all of his loved ones and everybody he knew died.
Yeah,
that could have been better.
It would definitely make my comments about Tim from Jurassic Park on the last episode read a bit differently.
This kid needed to get eaten.
The movie would have been so much better if he died. Yeah. Inside Out is an example of something where I think that, like, or Seven is another one, not to spoil that movie, or either of them for people. But I think both of those succeed in their themes by having, like, going to really dark places and ultimately using that to have a more powerful, hopeful ending. So we'll get into the last theme for this, at least that I've found, which is empathy. So I didn't catch this so much the first time, but in revisiting it, I was a little more in tune with the like how the empathy theme was working. Maybe I'm reading what I want to into this, but in the scene where Evelyn tries to become like Jobu Tapaki and like access all of her different multiverses, even though it might like break her brain or whatever, I really read that as like a major beat in the empathy theme, because I think it's like her trying to think back on her own experiences and regrets and just like getting in tune with herself to help her understand how Joy's feeling. And again, maybe this is me reading what I want to into this, but I feel like this movie's take on empathy in part is that a major part of being empathetic is being in tune with your own experiences, like just in context of like the order of things. Evelyn is able to have empathy for Joy and the tax lady and all the people she fights on the staircase because she's gone through all of this really deep introspection during the first 2 hours of the movie. So I would be very down to hear other readings of that from either of you or other people, but that was kind of how I saw it. I wonder if it's maybe missing something, though, about like where that sort of empathy is limited, or maybe there was kind of something that points to that and I missed it. And then my last point with this, the stairwell fight at the end, I think is, I mean, again, cross-cutting climactic sequences are everything for me, and this is maybe top 3. And I love how much it lingers on each person when she's like finding their thing to like empathize with and like using the like that aspect of like multiverse jumping to like
Killing them with kindness.
Yeah, I love that scene. Like I've been listening back to the score and I get choked up hearing that song that plays underneath it.
Is it Despacito? Is that what's playing? I forget the song that's playing.
It's just score. The score is excellent for this. The opera fight in the office, also like this is a tangent from the topic we were on, but that office fight might be the most beautiful fight scene ever, both in terms of choreography and like.
You mean with Wayman when he's whipping the pouch?
Oh no, that's also an excellent fight scene. I love that one as well. But I'm talking the one where there's the opera in the background when Evelyn's like first going into like full multiverse mode as a fighter, and she does the thing where she spins the sign in the one multiverse and then she takes the police shield and takes down all the people.
And then knocks everybody off you.
It's so fucking good. I love that scene so much. Like, there are better action scenes out there, but in terms of like an action scene hitting perfectly on a character beat, like, holy shit. It's so good. Anyway, did either of you have anything on the empathy theme?
I didn't really notice it at first, but after hearing what you said, I can see my reading of it would be like the characters only really can empathize, like you said, as far as their own experience. Like once she gets to really see everything and get the full experience, I feel like there is a change in her. So I can see like the actual that reading coming through in the movie. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't, when I watched it the 2 times, that theme never kind of hit me.
I think there's also, though, like, just, it's kind of also working on, like, a metaphor level there, too. Because, like, I think you could see it as, at the beginning of the movie, Evelyn is, like, kind of wrapped up in her own issues and isn't really considering anyone else around her. And then in that stairwell fight at the end, even though it's just kind of a group of strangers, she's kind of approaching all of them as like people who also have like a full life experience and like a complex inner world. That's how I like to read it. I could, again, just be reading what I want to into it, but I like that reading of it.
I'm a David. I didn't notice it until you mentioned it.
Were there any other themes you guys notice? Because I'm sure there are others that I didn't. I just kind of listed the four that stood out to me, but I think there's many more that I didn't.
I don't think so.
That's fine. And, listeners, if you saw one in there, let us know, tweet at us. Because I think there's a lot more to unpack in this movie that I just can't see in, like, on two viewings. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of videos about this in the next little bit. Anything else before we get into our last topic? The balancing dark and light tones.
I thought we talked about racism already.
Oh.
It rears its ugly head again.
Racism is ugly. That's an ugly motherfucker.
It really is. I'll let you guys start off with it. Do we have anything on the tone?
Well, I feel like it probably didn't work for Jelani because he didn't like the movie that much, but the tone worked for me. I thought it was very campy. I thought it was very just absurd, but also grounded. And I really liked how it was able to balance between a scene or make a scene as epic as, like, you could show Darth Vader in Rogue One when that lightsaber lights up the thing and he starts tearing people at the end of the movie trying to get the codes or whatever. And then you could show when Joy comes with the dildos and it's the same thing. And it's doing the same purpose for the villain. It's epic. It's scary. It establishes the stakes. It's hilarious. It was awesome. I've never seen anything like it. It was kind of like if Saints Row the Third was a movie.
Oh,
that's what this movie is.
Saints Row is fucking crazy. I didn't know you played Saints Row, baby.
Yeah, it came with my first Xbox. That was the game that came in the package.
Nice. I only played it once, and I activated the invincibility cheat, and after like half an hour, I was bored.
Do you think that's a fair comparison? I don't know what that is, but Jelani, do you agree with that reading?
Yeah, it makes perfect. That's a good comparison. There's a dildo weapon in the game.
Okay, well that's definitely a parallel, I guess.
There's dildos in this movie.
There are. Yep, there are multiple. I do think there could be a barrier with the tone here because again, like my boss was saying to me with the hot dog fingers, his problem with it was that he thought it undercut the emotion of stuff, and I think the hot dog fingers are probably the biggest example of that. But there's a number of things that are like where there are jokes that are potentially taking away from an emotional moment. I didn't find that was a problem for me. I thought that worked really well.
That was a problem for me. And then the rock falling off the cliff in the climax and all that, I was like, all right, man, this is not... What are they doing here? I don't get it.
How did you feel about the first rock scene? Because I feel like that is one of the biggest examples. Okay.
That kind of captured what the movie's tone, I think, that scene. It's absurd. What's happening is absurd, but they're talking about some stuff,
I felt that way more with the hot dog. Like a lot of people cracked up. Yeah, a lot of people cracked up in the first theater. They cracked up at both, but the second time I saw it, it was a less full theater, and they laughed at the hot dog hands, but they really laughed at the rock. And I always found the hot dog hands funnier, and I also was just more invested in like her relationship with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and I actually really bought into that reality and felt sorry for her. And she's like, why are you nice to me one minute and then cold to me the next? And it's like, it's depending on which version of Evelyn is like going into her to like fight and everything. And I was like, that really sucks for that Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, she doesn't have her Evelyn all the time because this Evelyn needs to fight to survive. So for some reason, I was super invested in that reality. And the rock reality, I was like, this is cute. This is funny. I get why everyone's laughing, but like, I'm ready to like not see rocks and text on my screen.
I think I was also really uncomfortable with the hot dog finger effect. It was really gross looking.
Yeah.
And weird. And it's not like it was like hot dog colored fingers. It was their skin tone.
Flesh.
Yeah. It was like
Jamie Lee Curtis is like, that's it, I'm done, I'm leaving. And she grabs her bag and she's like running away and they're bouncing. Oh my God, it's so funny.
No.
And they're bobs, they're matching bobs. Like, why is that reality? They all have bobs and hot dog fingers. It just doesn't make sense.
And then they cut back to the film, and in the film they eat each other's fingers. It's just like, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I was kind of confused by that, but I didn't think the hot dogs were like, if there had been too much more of it, I might have like maybe had an issue, but I was mostly okay with the hot dogs.
You guys like hot dogs, right? Hot dogs get a bad rap.
Is
The Happening.
Okay, I was gonna say I know that's from something. I'm kind of more with Jelani on the rocks thing. Like I liked like when they went back to it and the rocks are falling down the hill. I thought that was great. Unlike you, it sounds like.
No, that was fine because that was like
me.
rocks on a like that wasn't the text.
Yeah, I was saying
Like,
that Jelani
that was a
didn't like
payoff.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I was fine with the payoff. The setup was just so long, but people loved it in the theater. Like they thought it was so funny. Like, shh, it doesn't matter. We're rocks. Just be a rock. People were like, ah, ha, ha, ha. I was like, okay.
The Rock moved, David. That's comedy genius. The Rock moved. Rocks aren't supposed. They're not even supposed to have subtitles. The Rocks were like, you know what? We are rocks. We can do whatever we want. It's comedy, right? Right, guys?
I thought the rock moving was more like Evelyn like embracing the like nihilism in a good way, where it's like nothing matters, so I am limitless. Even though I'm a rock, I'm gonna move. I really loved that moment.
I thought she was trying to go hug her.
I think the Rocks are another version of the everything bagel and the googly eyes, but in this case, they represent rocks.
I don't know if something can represent itself, though.
See where I'm going? You guys get it, right? Yeah.
So I write myself into a story, and I am a metaphor and a stand-in for me?
Exactly.
Okay.
And also, like, the literal character.
Yep.
All of it.
All of it.
Everything.
Everywhere.
At the same time.
David, you didn't finish it. We were about to do it.
Yeah. Just didn't feel right.
Back to the rock scenes, though. I thought my theater, and it sounds like yours as well, David, like that scene is kind of a litmus test for if you're on like the right wavelength, because I feel like in my theater, everyone laughed exactly when like that scene wants you to laugh, but then as soon as it turns and gets deep and existential, it hit for everyone, and like they started crying at the right moment too. So
I didn't hear any sniffles in my theater. Just putting that out there.
I think I heard a few in mine.
He saw the movie alone.
I'm crying now. Good.
I wasn't crying loudly, but I did cry both times a little bit. So I was definitely on the wavelength. I don't think the rock scene was where it got me. The office fight with the police shield came close. That was a good one. And the stairwell fight as well. So another thing that I was going to compare to, and I know you guys at least both know this, so I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think this does something that Community also does very effectively, of like, it's going for jokes sometimes, and the jokes do land, but it's not embarrassed of its emotions at all. It can end with everyone hugging, and that feels just right. Like, it doesn't feel cheap or tacky or anything. It's like, yeah, this is resolving something, and I love it for the comedy as much as I do for like all the character conflict and like self-actualization is coming together at the end. It's kind of doing the same thing.
I can understand that. But also, I feel like I've mentioned, I don't know if it was on the show or not, that Community like felt very formulaic after a while. Like, I binge watched it my first time ever watching Community, and I was just like, okay, so somebody does something kind of out of character at the beginning of an episode, and they make somebody else in the group sad, and then they learn why it hurt the other person, and then by the end, Jeff gives a speech and everything's okay. Rinse and repeat for the next 5 seasons.
That's fair, but I also feel like 96% of those episodes work incredibly well.
96? That's a lot.
Yeah, there's only like 4 episodes of that show that I actively don't enjoy watching, and the rest of them are C to A tier. Most of them, or C to S tier. Most of them
Season
B to
6,
S
Evan?
tier.
All of it?
I like season 6, except for 1 episode. Like I said, there's only like 3 or 4 episodes that I like kind of avoid rewatching. Everything else I watch and I'm just like, God damn, this show is like the greatest show ever.
Oh no, it got better for me upon each rewatch, but the first time watching it, I was just like, what's the goal here? You know?
No, I don't quite follow you there.
No, I'm not gonna explain it.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
David, do you feel like it's an apt comparison, or am I wrong?
I think it's a good comparison, but I also think it's like the broad statement of, for me, a lot of the best comedies that I like also service as dramas. Like, you can remove the jokes and the beats are still there, and I think that's what, like, you're pretty much saying. Like, you can remove the jokes and the story is strong enough to carry it through, but the jokes just elevate it. And it's the same with like the best comedies. Like, when I think of Billy Wilder and Some Like It Hot, like, there's a really deep metaphor in there, and there's a very deep story in there, even to the final line
That
of
movie was
when
funny.
he finds, it's very funny, to the point where he finds out, like, he's like, I'm a man, and he's like, doesn't make a difference to me, or he says something like that.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Oh
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
yeah.
And it's like, these are the different beats that, like, to me, the best comedy always hits. And to me, Everything Everywhere All at Once is some of the best comedy. So I would agree. And same with Community.
I do like how this movie does kind of go nuts with its tone, though, where it's like, it's very much going for the emotion and it's not ashamed of it. But it's also, it's having so much fun with its premise and having butt plug fights and like a riff on Ratatouille with a raccoon and hot dog fingers and all that. Part of it too is that everything has an internal logic. Nothing in there is purposeless. Like, even the multiverses with the raccoon and the hot dog fingers do have payoffs to like the larger story, and even just as like mechanics where like Evelyn's chef skills in the raccoon timeline are used to help her fight. Like, even something as small as that, I think, helps with that tone balance, because it's not just there being weird for the sake of being weird. That was pretty much everything for me. Anything else from you guys?
Well, that was pretty much everywhere for me.
Yep.
David?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, that was. Oh yeah, that was. That was.
Do it.
I feel. I don't know. Yeah.
God damn it, David. We set you up perfectly.
He's gonna end the episode by saying all at once.
Ah. All
We
right,
didn't
we'll wait
say
for it. Closing thoughts. This definitely ranks among my favorites right now. I probably got to rewatch it a couple more times and give it a little more space. But right now, I'm going to rank it as best of the decade, slightly above Tenet.
That's not the part that got me. It was the slightly above Tenet after. I haven't seen Tenet, but I didn't realize that was the list.
Yeah, well, it's a very on-brand list for me, but I know not many people will agree with that list.
All you gotta do is just ask, did Nolan make it? Alright, it's up there.
Last thing, we were able to ask questions, and Spotify listeners can answer them through Spotify somehow.
Oh.
So we'll start doing that with this episode. What multiverse would you want to live in, either from this movie or otherwise? Do either of you have an answer for that? I don't know if I do.
Spider-Man, and I want to be Miles Morales. That's it.
I guess I have questions. So, like, when it says multiverse, does that mean we just pick any reality we want to live in? Or, like, are we
guess
trying to
so.
pick a multiversal movie? Or are we looking at it in the sense of, like, how these multiverse function?
I really did not think it through. So, I don't know. Make your own rule for that.
Because the
I
only one
guess.
that seems like we can manipulate easily is Everything Everywhere All at Once. That seems pretty easily user-friendly.
Oh god,
The
the paper
Spider-Verse,
cut
you need to
scene.
have, like, a huge machine to even have that happening.
Well, and be a cartoon, but let's not limit ourselves.
But, like, if I can choose any reality to exist in, I don't know.
Or Static Shock.
Static Shock is yours.
One or the other, or both. I'm gonna be both.
It just hit me. I want whatever reality universe that had those old animations where Scooby-Doo and Batman used to cross over.
Oh,
That's where I want to live.
That'd be a good one. I want a universe. Honestly, I'd probably pick like certain political things, but in terms of fandoms, I'm gonna pick one where both.
Just say Inception and get it over with.
Okay, Inception, yes. Also, Inception, Tenet. If Tenet is real in one, I'll do that one with inversion. That'd be fucking cool. Also, if Hogwarts is real and I'm allowed to go to it in one universe, I'm totally going there.
You're a muggle. We're all muggles.
Well, maybe in that universe I'm not.
You could be Harry Potter. I just put the glasses and the scar on your head in my head, and yep, that's you.
Well, as a 7-year-old, I'd probably be very gratified to hear you say that. But it also has to be a universe where Hogwarts doesn't have... One, it's not run by Dumbledore because he's stupid.
It's in his name. Are you surprised?
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. And 2, it doesn't have all of J.K. Rowling's toxicity in it. We'll pick a universe that's woker than the one that J.K. Rowling made. So, that one. Also, a universe where the Hobbit movies were good, and there were only 2 of them.
Yeah, I would like that.
And at that point, I'll throw in one that has a good Game of Thrones season 10, where they don't stop at season 8 and they go up to 10 and it has a good ending.
This is a very specific multiverse.
Hey, there's a lot of them out there. If one can fit that bill, then I'm there. All right, so send us your multiverse pitches. Do you guys have any more?
No. Shark Tale.
Oh, oh no.
Hear me out.
Okay.
We're all fishes with human faces. Living in a Zootopia-like society in the ocean.
What do your locks look like as a fish, though? What does my beard look like as a fish? I don't know if I want to see that.
I'd probably be one of the jellyfish where my tentacles double as my locks.
Okay, that could work.
Shrek, but the ogres are all replaced by literal onions. So handsome Shrek would look like a what? A radish?
Tomato?
Maybe.
Cabbage.
Maybe just like a slimmer
Let us
onion.
know on Spotify.
Let us know on Spotify what...
That's a crazy sentence. I didn't know they started doing comments.
Yeah, let us know on Spotify what handsome Shrek or human Shrek would look like.
Respond with your own 3-minute song.
So, in keeping with the theme of long titles, our next 2 episodes are going to be Sorry to Bother You and Call Me By Your Name.
Nice.
You can check out our YouTube channel. We have our Patreon for $1 a month. We have merchandise on Zazzle. Our logo's by Kelsey Hendry. Tweet at the show at INTanalysis18. You can answer our multiverse question there as well. I am on Twitter at ev_Wes. And where are both of you?
I'm on Twitter at Jelani T. Kelly, Instagram at Jelani T. Kelly.
I feel like this one's too easy. But okay. No, because you'd be like, what's your Twitter? You know what I'm saying? It's like, where are you on Twitter? Or like, what's your Twitter? What's your Instagram? You'd be like, I'm everything, everywhere, all at once.
I thought you were going to say you were on the everything bagel. But okay.
He did it by himself, Evan, and I don't like that.
I'm the best.
Yeah,
we were supposed to do it as a... Damn it, David!
Well, we can try one more time. If you need me, I'll be everything.
I don't think that worked.
That really didn't work. All right. This movie really was everything.
You can find us everywhere.
Yep.
God damn it, David. All right. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
I'm just waiting for you to say it.
No, I'm good.
All right. Goodbye.